All persons having any business before this honourable court now draw nigh. Give your attendance and you will be heard. God save the King.
No, stand up. Chief Judge, I have the honour to announce that I have been appointed a judge of this court. May I present the Commission?
Thank you, Judge Habib. Judicial Registrar, if you would read the oaths of office and the Commission, please.
Whereas by the District Court Act 1973, it is enacted that the Governor may, by commission under the public seal of the state, appoint any qualified person as a judge of the District Court of New South Wales. Now I, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, AC Casey, the Governor aforesaid, in pursuance of the power and authority vested in me in that behalf, do, with the advice of the Executive Council of New South Wales, hereby appoint you, the said Shereef Habib, being a person qualified to be so appointed, to be a judge of the said court on and from the 31st day of July 2025. Provided always that you shall, except in case of leave of absence duly granted to you, actually execute the office to which you are by this commission appointed. Given under the hand of Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, Companion of the Order of Australia, King's Counsel, Governor of the State of New South Wales and the Commonwealth of Australia, this 2nd day of July 2025.
Judicial Registrar, do you have the oaths of office and the Bible upon which Judge Habib will be sworn?
Yes, Chief Judge.
Thank you. Judge Habib, would you please rise and take the oaths of office?
I, Shereef Habib, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King Charles III, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God. I, Shereef Habib, do swear that I will well and truly serve our Sovereign Lord, King Charles III, in the office of a Judge of the District Court of New South Wales, and I will do right in all manner of people, after the laws and usages of this state, without fear or favour, affection or ill will. So help me God.
Thank you, Judge Habib. The oaths will now be ascribed. Judge Habib, the oaths will be placed in the court archives and the Bible will be suitably inscribed as a memento of today's occasion. Can I take this opportunity to warmly welcome you to the court on behalf of myself and all of the judges of this court. You come with such great extensive experience and it is a pleasure to welcome you here today and congratulate you on your appointment.
Thank you, Chief Judge.
I now invite Mr. Michael Daly, Attorney General of New South Wales, to speak.
Thank you, Chief Judge, for your invitation to speak today. May it please the court, can I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land upon which we meet, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and welcome any Aboriginal colleagues here today. Judge Habib, can I congratulate you on behalf of the New South Wales Bar? Your arrival onto this esteemed bench is a testament to your skill, hard work, and the extremely high regard in which you are held right across the legal profession. Can I take a minute to acknowledge your family members who are here today? Your wife Milva, daughters Isabella and Lucia, your brothers Adele and Magdi, mother-in-law Ursula and brother-in-law Dario. Your Honour, you arrived in Sydney, Australia in 1969 as a very young boy with your brothers and parents from Cairo in Egypt. You didn't speak English at that time, but adapted very quickly to your new life. Your father, Ganil, had been an accountant in Egypt with his own practice, and your mother, Dowlet, a banker. They left behind good and meaningful employment and comfortable lives so that you and your siblings could have a better future. The most common of themes for those who have arrived on Australian shores from abroad with simple ambitions and who have in time made enormous contributions to our nation. Families just like yours. In Australia, your father held various roles, including in the building industry, before securing a role at the Land Titles Office. Your mother became a court interpreter. Your Honour, you credit them both with the perspective and drive that has led you to the bench today. Growing up, you were more interested in sport than academia and still remain a self-described soccer tragic. You played for the New South Wales Bar Football Club and are still involved in the over 45s league. Despite your initial ambivalence to study when at school, you finished your HSC in the top 1% of the state. This success continued at the University of Sydney, where your honour won various academic prizes and graduated in economics and law with first-class honours. You enjoyed economics but found yourself increasingly drawn to the law because it dealt with, in your words, real people and real problems. At university, when not occupied with law or sports, you also taught yourself the piano before also picking up the guitar. Ever the music enthusiast, you've been, I'm told, a bit of a Swiftie. And I've been known to drop Taylor Swift references to colleagues. Now, I'm with you on that, Your Honour. We might well have been at the same concert in Olympic Park last February. So last night when I was putting the finishing touches to these words, I was musing about some of the ways you might, in your career, use some of her lyrics in court. And there's a lot of material to work with. No body, no crime. Tell me why. Fresh out of the slammer. And the best one, look what you've made me do. I could keep going, but with more than 250 songs to Taylor's credit, and in the interest of time, I better shake it off. Oh no, that was bad, wasn't it? After graduating from the University of Sydney, you're awarded a scholarship to study at Stanford Law School. You described your decision to go to the US as one of the best choices you've ever made. Stanford challenged you in all the right ways. Classes were conversations rather than lectures, and you were simply expected to not only have done the work, but to have excelled in the doing. In 1989, you returned to Australia to work as an associate to Federal Court Justice Murray Wilcox, and this opportunity was, in your words, an extraordinary introduction to the practice of law. Under Justice Wilcox, you learned the value of precision, preparation, and how to listen and not just speak in court. Afterwards, Your Honour joined Freehills as a solicitor before moving to the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in 1993. You've said your time at the DPP gave you the grounding you needed at that time. Real court time, quick decisions, and learning how to adapt and advocate. You were called to the bar in 1995 and first met your wife while working on the 10th floor. While colleagues at the time thought you'd make a great couple, it was 8 years before things really got moving. Milva didn't want to marry a lawyer because she says they were never home. But your persistence and many other unique qualities, we're sure, prevailed. And since then, you've always prioritised your family. Over 30 years at the bar, Your Honour's built a broad and distinguished practice, spanning commercial litigation, class actions, administrative law, criminal law, equity and constitutional matters. Your Honour, you've appeared across the full gamut of courts, including the New South Wales Local, District and Supreme Courts, as well as the Supreme Court in Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania, the High Court, the Federal and Family Court. One of the most significant matters Your Honour worked on was the extensive litigation that followed the collapse of the Bell Group in the 1990s. It became one of Australia's biggest corporate collapses, with the legal fallout spanning 25 years and only concluding in the early 2020s. You appeared across more than 400 hearing days, acting for over 20 banks and a $1 billion claim bought by liquidators. This work took Your Honour to Europe, where you interviewed key witnesses, reviewed financial records and helped piece together various crucial aspects of this most complex of cases. You've also appeared in numerous matters relating to insurance and superannuation, and this includes, of course, class actions against Suncorp and Nulis over superannuation fees. You've also acted for Avant Insurance in the federal court case that had significant implications for insurance law around the notification of claims. Your Honour, you've said that the law has taught you how to put emotion to one side and work through the facts, and that most legal problems are really people problems. A certain barrister who previously worked with you said you'd be the kind of judge every barrister hopes to appear before. High praise. You're someone who never stops until you found the right answer and have never been one for grandstanding in court. Instead, you have a calm, forensic approach that keeps witnesses true to detail and earns their trust. Another lawyer described you as the most approachable silk she'd ever briefed. She said you'd never talk down to anyone, not your juniors, clients or court staff, and that this respect would be your trademark on the bench. She described you as someone who listens and is fair and steady like every judge should be. She also likened you to a fire blanket in high pressure situations because everything might be burning, but Your Honour would step in calmly, methodically and fairly. You see, in your words, the law as a way of solving human problems and have never forgotten the human part. And so, Your Honour, after a fulfilling career at the bar, you consider that joining this bench is an act of public service and a way to give back to the community. It most certainly is, and I thank you for serving. May it please the court.
Thank you, Mr Attorney. I now invite Ms Moira Saville, Counsellor of the Law Society of New South Wales, to speak.
May it please the court. I too acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which this court stands, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I acknowledge and extend my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are with us today. On behalf of the Solicitors of New South Wales, it is a privilege this morning to congratulate Your Honour on your outstanding appointment in the presence of your wife Milva, your daughters Isabel and Lucia, your brothers, your mother-in-law, your extended family, friends and colleagues. Perhaps unusually, I would like to begin by noting that some members of the profession may have required some convincing that Your Honour has been appointed to this court. After all, for some, this is not your first judicial appointment. The Law Society was informed that Your Honour once induced panic in a colleague when you forwarded him the Our RM newsletter, a putatively Egyptian publication, announcing that you would be, and I quote, the Chief Justice of the new English language Supreme Commercial Court in Egypt. The colleague in question went mad at the thought of losing you mid-trial, and having been there myself, I understand that, the thought of all the additional work which would fall to him in your absence, until he realised that it was April Fool's Day. The newsletter was indeed fake news, and there was no such jurisdiction. Your Honour's natural sense of humour and inclusion of colleagues, irrespective of seniority, have made a great impact on those fortunate enough to have worked with you. And while the Law Society has heard from multiple sources of jokes that you have played, we also heard how not taking yourself seriously does not mean that your work was not taken seriously. Your Honour's professionalism, outstanding advocacy and generosity were all clear in conversations with the legal profession. Several solicitors noted how Your Honour has been a well-regarded and well-liked practitioner, and those who have had the pleasure of knowing you are glad that your work has been recognised by the Attorney-General and this court. Others also noted how Your Honour's inclusion of junior colleagues in your work and your generosity of time for them has helped to shape them into better solicitors, and for that Your Honour also has our gratitude. Your career to date has been remarkable. However, in contrast to your colleagues' characterisations, Your Honour characterised your young self as without big aspirations. This may not have been entirely fair, as Your Honour settled on economics, for which you have a talent. Your academic performance in school was such that you could choose anything that you wanted to do, and anything was a combined degree of economics and law. Following your studies, Your Honour received the job offer of the outstanding opportunity of being an associate to the Honourable Justice Wilcox at the Federal Court. Here, Your Honour's legal career began in earnest. This was an invaluable time for you, benefiting from Justice Wilcox's wisdom and experience. From the chambers of Justice Wilcox, as the Attorney has mentioned, Your Honour joined Freehills, Hollingdale and Page as a solicitor in the Commercial and Intellectual Property divisions, and your thoughts soon turned towards the bar. Parting with Freehills, Your Honour became a senior officer with the Commonwealth Department of Public Prosecutions. Your Honour's time as a prosecutor with the CDPP was brief, but the 15 months you spent there, appearing in court almost every day, confirmed your aspirations. Your Honour wanted to be an advocate. In 1995, Your Honour was first in the bar exams and then called to the New South Wales Bar. Since then, as the Attorney has mentioned, Your Honour has appeared in many jurisdictions across every state, barring Queensland, in the Supreme Court, the Federal Court and the High Court of Australia. Your Honour's practice areas were what someone described as very, very narrow, only encompassing arbitration, banking, commercial litigation, competition, I have more, consumer protection, corporate reconstruction, insolvency, corporations, bear with me, equity, insurance and intellectual property. Just 12 or so areas of the law. Lightheartedness aside, your honours practice areas evolved, echoing your earlier pursuit of economics. Earlier, I mentioned the unfortunate colleague who fell for your honours Egypt announcement. It was during your work with him on the Bell Group matter that you took silk, and suddenly your honour was his senior. As the attorney has said, you appeared for the 20 banks sued by the Bell Group, which was then in liquidation. The first instant hearing of this matter ran for 3.5 years in the Supreme Court of Western Australia. It was Australia's longest running trial with over 400 hearing days and an eventual judgment of more than 2,500 pages. I just want to repeat that for the court recorder. Over 2,500 pages, something perhaps to aspire to. Your Honour, or not, Your Honour has also appeared in multiple class action matters, which is where we crossed paths. In Your Honour's words, class actions are a unique type of law. They're often the only way for an ordinary person to pursue redress and hold a corporation to account. And equality before the law is one of the keys to our society, including always making an appearance in that terribly hard to define idea, the rule of law. The independence of working for yourself as a barrister and the exhilaration of running trials have also meant that Your Honour has loved the work which you have done for the past 30 years. All of this legal experience Your Honour brings to the bench today. And in recent years, a mounting interest in public service has occupied Your Honour's mind. Your Honour has noted your benefit from a tuition-free education, and your wish is to repay the community that helped you, especially as your success has grown. When the Attorney General's call came, Your Honour was, fortunately, this time in the office later than usual, and the choice of celebration was a drink and a dinner with Melva. I hope that Your Honour's new role leaves plenty of time for the family you love and perhaps still some time for soccer. I'm going to get in trouble with my son for calling it soccer rather than football. Finally, may I say that among the many testaments to Your Honour's professionalism and trenchant knowledge of the Law Society also heard of Your Honour's love for music and attention to pop culture. And I have been told of a note that Your Honour had once written for a case you were working on while Taylor Swift was touring Australia, repurposing her song titles. Your Honour wrote, among other things, that you understood all too well that it was time to shake it off and realise that the parties were never, ever getting back together. Whether your familiarity with Miss Swift comes from your daughters or from your own musical taste, I can't be sure. And while the Attorney General has taken the best lines, allow me then to say that Your Honour fills a blank space in this court. On behalf of all 43,000 solicitors in our state, and on behalf of the Law Society of New South Wales, thank you, for Honour, for taking this appointment, and congratulations. As the court pleases.
Thank you, Ms Seville. Judge Habib.
Thank you, Chief Judge. I also acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation and pay my respects. Thank you all for coming here today and braving the weather. You do me and the court a great honour with your presence. I particularly acknowledge the presence of Justice Beach-Jones of the High Court, President Ward of the Court of Appeal, and Justices Adams and Maguire from the Supreme Court, Judge McCabe of the Federal Circuit Court, and Deputy Chief Magistrate Zavaridis, and Acting Magistrate Bell. The Chief Justice sent me a note yesterday indicating he was unable to be here today due to a long-standing commitment, but I thank him and the other Justices of Appeal, the Supreme Court and the Federal Court, who have extended congratulatory messages. Recently, at Justice Maguire's swearing in, he chose not to be modest and self-deprecating in response to the words from the attorney and that swearing in, Ms. Ball, but rather noted that their addresses were fair and accurate. If I may go one step further on this occasion, I think you both showed admirable restraint and took a less is more approach. Nevertheless, I thank you very much for your kind words and your presence here today. How did I get here? So when I think back on my days in primary school at Lakemba Public, and then at high school at Punchbowl Boys High, the idea that I would have a measure of success in life was not a well-formed idea, apart from possible success on the sporting field. Indeed, my high school was a breeding ground for sporting excellence. We had two test bowlers, Jeff Thompson and Lenny Pascoe, were former students. Steve Folkes, the great Canterbury forward, was a student in my brother Magdy's year. And Greg Welsh, Australia's first winner of the Hawaiian Ironman, was in my year. And there were many others. So until about year 10, sport dominated my thinking. Football, soccer to the less informed, cricket, volleyball, but predominantly football. Between the constant training and competitive games, I spent approximately 5 minutes a day, if that, on schoolwork. Then a fateful event happened. My oldest brother, Adele, a maths teacher at the time, was transferred to my school. As you can imagine, I was none too pleased about that. However, it did, in a significant way, perhaps alter the course of my life. You see, the teachers at the school mentioned to him that they thought I could do quite well academically if I actually did any work. Through him, that message got back to my parents, and my mother, in her gentle, persuasive manner, suggested that I might just try a little bit and see how it went. So I did. I started to do well and found that perhaps sport was not the only source available to me for achievement. By the time year 12 came along, I was certain I would be an economist. I very much enjoyed economics, and my aim was to obtain admission to a Bachelor of Economics at the University of Sydney. My brothers had attended that university, and that was the only one I was going to go to. Luckily, I was able to be admitted to a Bachelor of Economics and Law degree, as you've heard. And I thought that sounded rather good because it was a 5-year degree, which therefore put off your work just that bit longer than a single bachelor's degree. No one in the family had any legal background. Still, as time went on, I found that the law subjects were far more interesting and engaging than economics. And the thoughts drifted of being a lawyer, not fully understanding at that point what that really meant. I should say, however, that during university, friends and I would often go on mini breaks to the Blue Mountains. And at that time at Lura, there was an international hotel management school. Now that piqued my interest. And for quite a while, I had real visions of being the general manager of a 5-star hotel in Paris or Rome, swanning around, drink in hand, greeting guests. I thought that sounded like management. If for those old enough, picture the host of Fantasy Island. And that was a possible future. However, the draw of the law was strong. As you've heard, my first experience, sorry, you haven't heard this. My first experience with the law was a summer clerk at Freehills. And that experience really whetted my appetite. If you can believe it, I left that summer clerkship at 21 years old, thinking the law game was fun and quite easy. Why? Well, I was placed in the intellectual property section of the litigation department. My main memory of that time involved 2 events. First, I was tasked to attend a particular jewellery store with a female solicitor. Now, this solicitor was in her late 20s, very intelligent, excellent lawyer, and a very elegant person, very tall. And we were to attend the jeweller posing as a couple, looking to buy a Cartier watch for her. We'd been told that fake Cartier watches were being sold by this jeweller and told how to spot a fake. It was ridiculous. I was 21, looking 18, in a very cheap suit, somewhat vertically challenged, her looking like she came straight out of a Vogue magazine. I don't think there was any prospect of fooling the jeweller, and we predictably left empty-handed. But it was fun. It was a fun afternoon. The next event was an Anton Pillar raid. Word had got out that fake labels were being sewed on clothes at Paddy's markets, and coordinated raids were being conducted. We had town cars with drivers, 2-way radios, police with us. It was very, very exciting. And we had more success with that raid. But again, I left thinking this law stuff is seriously fun. My first full-time job, as you heard, was as an associate with Justice Wilcox in the Federal Court. He was a wonderful man and a wonderful judge. He also liked to travel interstate on full courts, which gave me as a young man lots of opportunities to see other parts of the country. My first job as a lawyer, however, as you've heard, was at Freehills, which is a wonderful firm to work for. I enjoyed the work and I learned much from many partners that I worked with, in particular Bruce Ramsey and Tony Muratori. But I certainly did come to understand at that point the commitment and effort required to be a good lawyer, and also understood how misleading my summer clerkship was. Had I not ultimately wanted to be a barrister, I would have stayed there. It was clear to me, however, after 3 years at Freehills, that I wanted to be an advocate. So in 1995, I became a barrister, and I loved being a barrister. Success at the bar involves a lot of hard work, a modicum of talent, and luck. And I was very lucky that I was given a reading spot on the mighty 10th floor, Selborne, Wentworth, which then became my professional home for the next 30 years. I was also lucky enough to read with Stephen Finch, SC, who's here today, from the floor, and Howard Insall, SC, off the floor. In the early days, I had great support from many of the silks on the floor, who brought me into interesting and often large cases. Not only did that provide me with work, it also provided introductions to many solicitors. Whilst it's always a little dangerous to single out people, I might just mention Brian Raymond, KC, Francis Douglas, KC, Tom Djukovic, KC, Tony Bannon, SC, and most particularly Martin Einfeld, KC. I was junior to Martin in many cases, and he was a wonderful supporter of my early career at the bar. I learned much from him, in particular the resilience, perseverance and determination required to run cases, particularly when not on the better side of the law or the facts. He was able to win cases in some very unlikely circumstances. And I'm pleased to see he's now enjoying a well-deserved retirement on the Gold Coast. I'm particularly grateful that he's made the journey to be here today. Off the floor, James Wilson, KC, former Chief Justice of the Federal Court and President of the Court of Appeal, has been a great supporter, and I have valued his advice and guidance over the years. David Catterns, KC, became a great source of work for me. He would run and win patent cases for generic pharmaceutical companies and then refer them to me to run claims on undertakings as to damages that were given in support of interlocutory injunctions. And those claims often ran into the hundreds of millions of dollars. I ran many such claims, and as a result, there is a room in our house called Catterns Hall in recognition of his contribution. He's also enjoying a well-deserved retirement, filling up with wine in France and sometimes Sydney. The 10th floor has been an excellent set of chambers from which to practice, a floor of extraordinarily talented barristers throughout my 30 years there. Just as importantly, it has always been a harmonious floor. Indeed, the only contentious issue I recall in my 30 years there revolved around proposed extensive and expensive renovations some 10 years ago. Two camps emerged. The utilitarian camp, who thought that all that mattered was the work, and provided the walls were standing, that was good enough. And then you had the fancy pants camp, who wanted a nice new conference room, a large kitchen with convection microwave ovens, coffee machines, pantries, island benches, showers in the bathrooms, and so on. The issue was resolved amicably and democratically at a floor meeting, and everybody just got on with it. By the way, the fancy pants camp won, led by Richard Cheating, SC, who's here. To the great benefit of the floor, we've had nice facilities for many years. For some odd reason, still unexplained, Richard left the floor between the decision to proceed with the renovations and their commencement. I'm not sure whether that was a financial decision or whether the weight of leading the fancy pants camp was just a little bit too much for him. The floor has had wonderful leaders. My first leader was the late Roger Giles, a great man and a giant of a barrister. But Brian Raymond, KC, Malcolm Oates, SC, and our current floor leader, our current emperor, as he prefers to be known, Tony Bannon, SC, one of the leaders of the New South Wales Bar. All great floor leaders. Apart from being a floor of excellent barristers with whom I could bounce ideas and seek advice from, and which I did on many occasions, to the great assistance of my practice. The floor also has had general success on the cricket pitch, with annual or biannual matches against the 11th floor, at times attended to and played by the Chief Justice. They were always fun occasions, great for floor block bonding, and they also provided the opportunity to watch Francis Douglas steaming in from a long run, which was always a thing of beauty. And to the selectors of the 10th floor, I remain available for the this year. The floor has had wonderful clerks. I mentioned particularly former clerks Trish Hoff and Di Strathgy, both of whom were good to me and very effective at their job. Emma Houlihan has now been clerk of the floor for many years, and she is an absolutely superb clerk. She's proactive, always looking after floor members, and runs the floor staff with great efficiency. She's also warm and caring of floor members, and I thank her very much for the assistance she's given me over the years. Apart from having worked with excellent silks over the years, some of whom I've mentioned, upon being appointed Senior Counsel in 2009, I had the great fortune of working with many excellent juniors. As all silks know, an excellent junior, one who's not afraid to challenge and debate ideas, is a godsend. Many of the juniors I've worked with are now very successful silks in their own right. For example, Justine Beaumont, SC, Angus Lane, SC, Stefan Belafoudis, SC, and Stuart Lawrence, SC, to just mention a few. In more recent years, Amy Campbell, Amelia Smith, Rachel Francois, and Kathleen Morris have been my juniors in various matters, and all are excellent barristers and with whom it is a joy to work. Rachel and Kathleen were present during the Taylor Swift episode that you've heard about. And may I say this, in adopting Taylor Swift song titles in argument at that mediation, I did not see myself as some form of anti-hero or that I would be causing any bad blood, but I confess I did feel somewhat fearless in doing so, but I'll stop there as well. I'm grateful to the solicitors represented by Ms. Seville today, who briefed me and entrusted me with their clients' cases. I do not think it appropriate to name particular solicitors or firms. They know who they are, and I see a number of you here today. However, I want you to know that I always felt privileged to be trusted by you, and I'm grateful for all the assistance you provided over the years. I always sought the views of my briefing solicitors about the issues in the case and any decisions that had to be made, because I very much value their contribution. Many have become good friends, and I'll miss working with you. I now turn to my friends and family. I'm very fortunate to have a number of friends here today, but unfortunately I don't have the time to name all of you. But I'm very pleased and eternally grateful that you've made the time to be here. I'll just note my closest friend from primary school, Morgan Powell, and my closest friend from university, Susan Pandit, are both here, which is wonderful. I thank my mother-in-law, Ursula, and brother-in-law, Dario, for being here. I just want to say that being a part of your family has been a delight. Dario's wife, Sharon, and children, Hayden, Christine, and Samantha, couldn't be here, but shared in the excitement of this appointment. Ursula has always been a loving mother-in-law, and I've returned that love by eating far too much of her lasagna, cotoletta, and so many more Italian meals. It's with great regret that my mother and father are no longer with us. They would have been so chuffed to be at this swearing in. So too it is with sadness that my much loved sister-in-law Jeanette, who passed away earlier this year, is not with us here today. She always took an interest in my work. I'm very happy that my brother Adele and Jeanette's husband, my nephew Tom, is here. My brother Magdi, sister-in-law Mary, and my niece Charlotte are all here today. My niece Penny is travelling in Europe and is unable to be here. My nephew Felix is in Melbourne. They've all provided great support and love over many years, and I'm grateful they're able to share today. I have family members in Egypt and elsewhere watching on the live feed, including my niece Penny, who I should note is has followed me in the law, and I hope I look as good on the feed as I think I do in IRL, which is in real life, as my daughters have taught me. I mentioned how much luck plays a part in life. Well, I was lucky to have my parents. As you've heard, we emigrated to Australia in 1969. My oldest brother was about 16. My middle brother, Nancy, was about 12, and I was 4. On one level, it was a familiar immigrant story, parents moving to give a better life for their children. However, on another level, it was quite a different story. My parents actually had a wonderful life in Egypt. My father, as you've heard, was a very successful accountant with his own businesses in offices in Cairo and Alexandria. And they lived in a beautiful 5-bedroom apartment in the best part of town opposite the presidential palace. They lived a high life, and they were able to provide help to our extended family as required. They had many friends and an active social life. They were in their 40s when they decided to leave Egypt. And they could have stayed and continued their wonderful life. However, looking forward, they felt that the future for their children would be more secure and successful outside of Egypt. Now, I won't go through all the reasons, but that was a decision they made. They gave all of their wonderful life in Egypt for us. They had the choice of England, Canada, or Australia. My father favoured England because he had carriage of the English government's work in Egypt and could have seamlessly shifted his practice to England. My mother vetoed England and Canada solely because of her concerns about the weather. So Australia was the pick. However, they knew no one in Australia and knew little about it. Whilst they did well here, they could never have had the life, and they never did have the life they once had. My father tried his hand at a few things. He built apartments, he owned a service station, and then ultimately worked in the land titles office. And my mother principally worked as a translator and interpreter, usually in the courts. She would often describe how either an accused or a witness would, after receiving a curly question in cross-examination, turn to her in a panic and ask in Arabic, "What should I say?" My mother, a paragon of scrupulousness, would ignore their plea and simply wait for their answer. So my parents' choice to put us first laid the foundation for my and my brother's lives. They are both successful in their own right. Adele, initially a maths teacher, and then having carriage of software programming throughout New South Wales schools and then into the United States. Maggie is head of staff at St Joseph Hunters Hill and has been a teacher there for approximately 40 years. Indeed, many barristers were taught by him. Australia was ultimately an inspired choice, an egalitarian country of wonderful opportunity. Australia, and in particular this state, provided me and my brothers with tuition-free education throughout our schooling and right through to university degrees from one of Australia's premier universities. My professional life has been underpinned by a fair and just court system funded by the taxpayers of this state. I owe much to this country and to New South Wales in particular. Now to my immediate family, my wife Milva and children Isabella, now 21, nearly 22, and Lucia, just turned 20. As I understand it, this is not the appropriate forum at which to have a whinge about my children. For example, it would be churlish of me here to observe that Isabella has a remarkable talent of storing her shoes, tops, and other assorted clothing in every part of the house. It would be entirely petty to highlight Lucia's talent in magic. She makes the carpet in her room disappear entirely under the weight of the full contents of her wardrobe. And because it would be inappropriate to make such observations here, I won't do so. What I will say to Isabel and Lucia is something they already know. I love them dearly. I'm proud that they have grown to be strong-willed and fiercely independent, yet empathetic and kind. They are both at the University of Sydney, Isabella doing arts, Lucia science. Isabella has deferred this year to pursue her music as a singer-songwriter. It's been the joy of my and your mother's life to be your parents. And now to the only person in this room who had a plausible, misleading and deceptive claim against me, which is thankfully now statute barred. My wife, Milva. We were married in 2002, and in July 2003, the Bell litigation, which you've heard about, commenced in Perth. As a result, Milva moved with me to Perth, away from her friends and family. I confidently assured her that this case was far too big to run and it would resolve within about 4 months, which was already an inordinate amount of time for any case in any event. 3.5 years later, 411 hearing days later, we left Perth in September 2006. We had both our children during that case. We would fly back to Sydney for the births and then return when each was 3 or 4 weeks old. Milva had to manage babies and then toddlers without family or her friends for support. I was occupied each day in court. We were fortunate to have made good friends with a French expat couple, Vincent and Monia, and also partners of Friedels Perth, Tony McCarthy and his wife Cindy, and Martin Goldblatt. Still, it was a very challenging time. As anyone who knows Milva would expect, she handled it incredibly well and without complaint. I have in recent times thought back to that period and frankly marvelled at how she handled what must have been a very difficult situation for her. She's been that way throughout our whole marriage. She holds a family together. She's the most wonderful wife and mother, and she devoted herself to our family. I'm acutely aware of the choices she has made in the interests of our family. She's a qualified project manager for the building industry, but at the time she sought work in that field, sexism made it very hard for her to obtain work commensurate with her skill and qualifications. She forged a successful work life in Chambers. She chose to give up any work ambitions to focus on the family. That's not a choice that everybody would make, but it's a choice she made. I'm not sure our daughters really understand how lucky they have been to have her as their mother. And I'm pleased to have this opportunity to publicly acknowledge the love and admiration I have for my wife. Finally, to the Chief Judge, Mr. Attorney, Ms. Seville, and the profession, I want to say this. It's an honour and a privilege to be appointed to this court. I'm excited to join the court, but understand the heavy responsibility entrusted to me. The court is critical to the administration of justice in this state. It conducts the vast majority of criminal trials in New South Wales and has a wide and varied civil jurisdiction. It's an incredibly busy court. All of the judges you see here today serve the public well. I will do my best to fulfil the oath I took this morning. I will work hard and I will do my best to assist this court in meeting its important role in society. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Habib. Before we adjourn, can I thank you all for being here and invite you all to morning tea in the room opposite. The court will adjourn.
That's right, Joe. Look at that, yeah.
It went for so long.
Who made that decision?
We were robbed at that case.
You were
I'd left by then. I'd been elected. Before that resolved.
Yeah, well done.
Because they all got us to
Oh, yeah, you got yours.
Yeah, is it on that?
I'm on a big